Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week. I'm glad that most of us like beef tacos, although I am a carnitas person. Unfortunately, this week I've had a slight accident at work again because, hey, nothing like being clumsy. So, unfortunately, there's going to be a replay. It's one of my very first episodes. It's the history of theme parks. And I know we love theme parks, so I figured some of you newer guys haven't heard this one, and it's time to listen to it again. If you've heard this one, maybe you catch something you didn't hear the first time. I promise to be back next week with new content. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me through this. And if you want to reach out and say hi, please feel free to do so on any of the social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And as always, you can email me at thatfloridafeel@gmail.com. Thanks again for understanding, guys, and I will see you next week. Hey guys, welcome back to That Florida Feeling. I'm so glad you all decided to join me again for our next stop on our travels through Florida. I do have to say a quick thank you to everybody who listened, liked, and followed the podcast, looked at the Instagram page, looked at the Facebook page, and of course there's still Twitter if anybody even uses that anymore. I don't know. I just rant, whatever. I am, though, overwhelmed by your support. You guys are absolutely amazing. I would not be doing a second episode if I didn't think anybody wanted to listen, so thank you. I do have good news. That Florida Feeling can now be heard on Google Podcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. I know not everybody prefers Spotify, but you have other options. But don't forget to subscribe or follow so that you can hear my next episodes. Let me reintroduce myself for you who are just joining us for the first time. My name is Jody, and I'm going to be your tour guide on our stop in Florida this week. And it's not just one stop, it's actually a full state tour. And we're going to talk about something that Florida is so well known for. It was one of the top 3 things. We're going to talk about theme parks, because everybody likes theme parks, right? I mean, I do. I know, though, when we think of theme parks in Florida, the main ones that still come to mind are always going to be Universal, Disney, SeaWorld, Legoland, and Busch Gardens. And we all have our favorites. By the way, I want to say thank you to everybody who participated in the Instagram poll. The winner by a clear majority was Universal. And you know what? I agree with you guys. I love Universal. I think it's got better theming. I think it's been redone. I love the Harry Potter stuff. And of course, the Marvel. And it's better. I don't know why. I like it better. But yeah, so we all agree. Universal's it. But we all know about these major theme parks that we've talked about. But did you know that the history of the theme parks in Florida is so much more than these 5? A lot of theme parks have actually called Florida home over the years. And when I was doing my research, I actually pulled up over 70 theme parks that have called Florida home during the last 80 years. Of course, as we can tell, most of them didn't make it. The theme parks were a main source of tourism in Florida, and the idea was more to draw people away from the beaches, but it was also to bring people down from the north. But theme parks didn't really start out the way we think of them today, with the rides, the attractions, the $20 pretzels and the $20 bottles of water and paying for everything under the sun just to have the experience. It actually started out more as museums, botanical gardens, and just a way to get people outside to enjoy the sunshine, because of course Florida is the sunshine state. I picked a few parks we're going to talk about today that didn't stand the test of time but helped to create the history of the theme parks in Florida. The first one we're actually going to talk about was in 1936, and it started in Winter Haven, Florida. Winter Haven, Florida is just a little bit south of Orlando, about an hour or so. And the first theme park we're going to talk about is called Cypress Gardens. May or may not sound familiar to some people. The park was founded by Dick Pope, who cleared away unwanted swampland to open a tropical garden attraction. He created a lush garden that planted massive trees and wanted to bring people down from the north. And how did he do this? Well, being the master of marketing, he sent pictures of the trees, the plants, the beautiful sunshine to the news outlets up north to lure the tourists down here to Florida. It kind of sounds like we need to blame him for snowbirds. Yeah, I think we kind of do. But he knew the gardens itself wouldn't keep people coming down, so he had to revamp it a little bit. He added water skiers. Cypress Gardens even got the name Water Ski Capital of the World for the amount of records that were broken there, and it brought national attention to the sport. Kind of made it a little famous for a little while. Pope actually continued his expansion of the park when he included Southern Bells, which were women dressed up in, think Gone with the Wind, antebellum type dresses, and would walk around and greet people and talk to them. He also incorporated beauty pageants into his park because the harsh weather kind of ruined his plans. I don't know about you guys, I can't really see a beauty pageant at a theme park, but hey, it worked for him because Cypress Gardens got so big that it tied the Grand Canyon for top tourist destination in the country in 1963. Obviously, its glory didn't last forever because we still can't visit it today. The park actually closed in 2003 due to changing traffic patterns, a rise in, of course, Disney World that's not far away, and then post 9/11 tourism declines. Slivers of Cypress Garden can be seen in present-day Legoland, which we're going to talk about later in the episode. Of course, Cypress Garden may have been the first, but the next to follow was more on its own in terms of how it thought of theme parks should be, and that was Six Gun Territory. It was a theme park to pop up in Florida. It was Wild West themed, and it kind of helped take guests to a different time and place. They had saloon girls, stuntmen on horseback, and of course even gunfights. I find it absolutely insane that they had gunfights, whether it be real or not. It just seems like something that I just can't see today. But the park was founded in the 1960s by Ronald Braxton Coburn. You know, the whole three-name thing, we should get back to that. It just sounds so professional or something. Anyways, the park was in Silver Springs. Mr. Coburn had actually built a park up in North Carolina, and he wanted to emulate the success, and he chose Florida. The park officially opened in 1963, and the Skylift was one of its main rides, but the park really wanted to draw the attendees onto the experience. So they had the girls doing the can-can in the streets, and cowboys that could walk around and greet you, and shootouts. The guests could even have a Pony Express experience where they bought a postcard and they would deliver it to the post office via horseback in town. Now, the park also maintained its Western theme by having special appearances from the top actors of the Western TV shows of the time. But unfortunately, Six Guns Run ended when Disney World opened, and they just couldn't compete with it. It's Disney World, what are you going to say? Of course, though, Six Gun wasn't the only theme park competing at the time. Another theme park that opened in the 60s was called Pirate World, and it was in Dania, Florida. For those of you who don't know, Dania is a little bit further south, a little more towards Miami. The park was actually built as a Buccaneer theme park, and it offered the standard rides of any theme park in those days, but its main ride actually sounds really cool. I kind of think I would have liked to ride this. It had a life-size pirate ship that sailed around the park, and it would be fired upon by rogue pirates. And of course, there were Buccaneers on board that would protect you as you roamed the seas with these pirates. I don't know, it sounds cool. Kind of reminds me of the one in Disney where you go around on the steamboat, but you know, a little more piratey. But the park's actual attraction that really drew people was that it hosted such names as Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, David Bowie, The Doors, Grateful Dead, Deep Purple, and many more in concert because they actually own the stadium next to the park. And the park really got attendance from those concerts, which, I mean, I would attend those. That sounds awesome. But, of course, everybody has their downfall. The park became a place where teens and police would clash in the 70s. And then with the opening of Disney World, the park couldn't stand the test of time and closed in 1973. People just didn't want to drive that far down south. When Disney was in the middle of the state, between the police clashes, nobody thought it was safe. And it didn't make it. Of course, another theme park that was competing for some tourists was actually in St. Pete, right south of Tampa. And it got in the theme park business when Aquatarium actually opened. It was built between the 64th and 66th Streets, kind of near the beach. The park actually opened in 1964, and its main attractions were more animal-based. They had trained porpoises, sea lions, and pilot whales. Kind of reminds you of a SeaWorld. The show actually took place under what is a real main attraction of a 160-foot golden dome that sheltered people as they watched shows while sitting around the world's largest circular marine tank. And the shows were billed as the greatest marine shows of the world. And they featured a star dolphin named Floppy. Alright, Floppy. Floppy was known for her 25-foot leaps out of the water and doing fantastic shows. But of course, the park eventually took a decline in the early 70s because of Disney World and a gas shortage that kind of hurt tourism all over Florida. The owners tried to capitalize on the fame of Jaws, but by naming it Shark World, it still just didn't stand the test of time. The park ultimately closed in 1977. All right, another one down. The next one we're going to talk about actually sounds pretty interesting, and you can kind of see remnants of it today in another part of Florida. Circus World actually opened in 1974 in Haines City, which is just south of Orlando. It was put together by Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Everybody's heard of them, the circus people. Their theme park obviously focused on circuses. They had performers that featured elephants and lion shows. The park also included a movie theater, a carousel, a roller coaster, the circus shows, and a clown college for those who wanted to be a clown. I mean, I just want to know, like, did you have to pay to go to the school and to get in the theme park every day? Like, was there like a pass? I don't know, that just seems weird to me. The park did serve as a winter home for the circuses since they weren't able to travel in some of the months with the animals. It actually did profit in the 1980s, which is kind of surprising since Magic Kingdom was open by then. But that was also its downfall because it was only 12 miles from Magic Kingdom. The attendance started to decline with the opening of Epcot, and it ultimately closed in 1986. And I'll be honest, I thought if there was going to be a Ringling Brothers, it was going to be closer to like southern Tampa and over there, because towards Sarasota, they have all their stuff over there with the circus museums and stuff. So I was kind of surprised that it was more towards Orlando. But, I mean, Disney did it. Everybody's doing it. Why not? The next theme park, though, is not... I don't really consider this a theme park, but it fell under it. It's not... There were no attractions at this one. It's just weird. It was called Splendid China. And we're going to go with theme park in quotations. It was in Central Florida. But their idea was to transport people to China. Like, they wanted people to be able to walk around and see what China was like and then get tourists to go to China. Great idea. But, you know, with no attractions. And your biggest thing was acrobats, wrestlers, and a replica of the Great Wall of China. You're not really going to stand up to anything. The park didn't have any rides, and they let people marvel at actors and replicas of things that they could see in China, like the Terracotta Warriors. The park ultimately opened in 1993, which I feel is super late compared to everybody else. But hey, they wanted to give it a try. And it did not fare well against Disney World or any of the other parks in the area. The park also had some anger from activists. They thought it was racist. There was many other things that you could read about it. And ultimately, the park only lasted 10 years. So I'm going to name a few more that didn't make it. We're not really going to go into detail about these, but I found these kind of interesting. And it shows that there really were theme parks all over Florida. There's the Funway Amusement Park in Fort Walton Beach. Castle Dracula in Panama City Beach. I probably would have actually visited that one. Dogland in Chiefland. Bird Island Cruise in McIntosh. Dixieland Park in Jacksonville. Cannot imagine why that one didn't make it. Peppermint Land in Fernandina Beach. Forest Amusement Park in Daytona, Treasure Land in Tampa, the Teddy Bear Museum in Naples, which reckons back to when I said that theme parks didn't start with rides and sunmarked tourists and overpriced everything. They were more museums and gardens to get people out. And then, of course, there was a Tiki Gardens in Indian Rocks Beach, which I actually probably would have wanted to go to that one. Now, I know we've talked about a lot of theme parks that didn't make it, ones we wish we could have visited that were still here today. But now we're going to talk about the ones that we've heard that have stood up to the test of time and are still creating the history of theme parks in Florida. First one we're going to talk about that we know of is SeaWorld. SeaWorld actually opened in 1973 after Disney World, and it is still in operation today. SeaWorld kind of started out as a basic theme park with the idea that it would be a marine zoological park. The park started out with animal exhibits and shows. Did okay, didn't do great. After some financial hiccups, it was actually bought out by Anheuser-Busch. And Anheuser-Busch came in and wanted to create a more thrilling park. They really wanted to compete, and they wanted to show off the animals, and they wanted to create their own experience. They've actually incorporated thrill rides in the park, such as some of the roller coasters you see today. And they really just wanted to compete with Disney World and kind of hold their own, but also be able to incorporate the animals into the park. And they will always be known for those exhibits and the marine life. They've actually incorporated new rides in the park, such as a trackless ride showcasing penguins. Love it. Not a fan of SeaWorld. Love the ride. Just because, it's penguins. Who don't love penguins? But they're also able to open 2 smaller parks, which kind of offer different experiences under the SeaWorld brand. They have Discovery Cove, which allows people a more up-close experience with marine life. There's like a snorkeling exhibit. You can actually go and see the animals in their habitat. And then, of course, there's Aquatica, which is a water park. Who doesn't love water parks? I do. We're going to talk about it in another episode. But of course, SeaWorld's had its controversy. I'm sure we've heard of it. It happened when one of the orcas drowned the trainer. That is a sad thing, and that kind of really showcased, like, these are still animals. They're not just for entertainment. They are still wild animals. But of course, SeaWorld has managed to navigate those rough waters and is still standing up against the mouse today. Another park we're going to talk about, I have not been to this one. After researching it, I really want to go to this one. It's Busch Gardens in Tampa. The park actually opened in 1959, which I was surprised at. I didn't realize it opened that early. And it was, of course, owned by Anheuser-Busch. It was originally built as a botanical garden and a brewery. So, of course, it offered beer tastings. And it had a massive bird sanctuary that people could go in and see kind of the birds that you don't normally get to see every day in Florida. The park has expanded and changed over the time. They offer restaurants, but their best exhibit is a large Serengeti plane exhibit, which allows African wildlife to roam freely. It's still there today, and it's actually still one of the most popular in the park. They do offer other different areas to kind of give each guest its own experience. They're also known for events for such as Real Music Series that features concerts, a food and wine festival similar to Disney, summer nights, which include late night concerts to keep the park open a little bit later and give guests a whole new experience at night. Of course, there's events around the holidays, and Howl-O-Scream, which turns the park into a haunted house featuring scare zones, shows, actors, and it's actually become one of the most top-rated Halloween events each year. Busch Gardens has obviously adapted and stood the test of time against the mouse, but it's also in another city in Florida, bringing another group of tourists to Tampa. They've created their own unique park. The brewery probably doesn't really hurt business, it's a brewery, but it kind of gives them their own little area. They're not just right next to the mouse. Another park we're going to talk about has really stood up and kind of reclaimed an old park. We're going to talk about Legoland next. Legoland is in Winter Haven, much like Cypress Gardens, which is about an hour outside of Orlando in Polk County. The park opened October 15th, 2011. I thought it opened much earlier than this. I had no idea it was like in the latter part of the 2000s. It's officially known as the Legoland Florida Resort, and it is the second largest Legoland in the Legoland Park family. I also didn't realize there were that many Legolands built around the world. This park is built on the former home of Cypress Gardens that we talked about at the very beginning of the episode. And Legoland's slogan is, "It's built for kids." The park actually has 29 attractions, just attractions. It's also got about 50 if you include the restaurants and shops and things like that. 4 of them are roller coasters. There's 6 water rides. The park itself is actually designed for children ages 2 through 12. I have not been to Legoland. I don't have anybody in that age in my household, so I'm sure people love it. We used to live in that area. It always seemed like there were people going and coming, so it always seemed like it was a little bit busy. They also just built 2, I think they have 2 resorts now, so people are definitely wanting to go. And of course, who doesn't love Legos? Just get to build stuff. Back on point, the park does have a jungle roller coaster that moved from Legoland Windsor. It's now called the Great Lego Race. If you've been, you've probably heard of it. It is broken up into 14 sections with some rides that include carousels, theaters, roller coasters, and of course Legos. They have replicas of New York City and Las Vegas. There is a Star Wars Lego replica. Who doesn't love Star Wars, right? And of course there's other areas, themes such as farms, kingdoms with dragons, lands of adventure, Ninjago, something just to take you out and put you in the land of Lego. The park is also open to water park, which again we'll talk about in another episode. And it was able to do that because of its increased popularity. It does include original features from Cypress Gardens that we talked about. That does include the actual gardens and a large banyan tree that was planted by Mr. Pope, as we talked about in the beginning of the episode. The gardens themselves actually are on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places as of April 2014. I think that's really awesome that, part of a theme park is in a historic place. That's actually really cool. Definitely a testament to Mr. Pope, who started it. The park is a little bit further out of the way than others. It's kind of right between more Orlando and Tampa. So it kind of has its own area to bring its own people, to a new place. Now, of course, the next park we're going to talk about is a powerhouse in its own right. And of course, our favorite, according to my Instagram post, Universal Studios Florida. It's also Disney's biggest competitor in the theme park scene here in Florida. The park was built late compared to the others. I didn't realize this. I thought it was much earlier than this. It did not open until 1990. The park actually now consists of 2 different areas, having their own themed area. It's made up of Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure that make up the Universal Orlando Resort. And of course, by adding Volcano Bay, which again we're going to talk about in another episode, it's kind of putting some pressure on Disney. You know, I feel that Universal is a great experience for adults. I mean, I love the Simpsons area. That is probably that and Harry Potter are tied for my favorites. Who doesn't want to go to Moe's and order a Duff, right? Or go to Harry Potter and have some butterbeer while finding your wand that chose you. I just think it's great. But of course, Universal also offers more than just the theme parks. They have their City Walk for late night experiences with shops, restaurants. They have a really cool putt-putt. There's a theater. The Hard Rock's over there now. It's just kind of an all-encompassing area that gives you something to do, walk around. It is family-friendly. But there is Voodoo Donuts, y'all. That is the best. All right, sorry. The park opened in 1990 with Universal Studios Florida being its first theme park, and the idea for this park was that you could ride the movies. I think it's awesome. I still love the Men in Black ride. Oh my God, that's one of my favorites. All right, sorry. Islands of Adventure opened a little bit later in 1999. Again, I didn't think it was that late. And it brought more themed areas that include Marvel Superheroes, Toon Lagoon, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, just to name a few. Of course, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and the Skull Island were added after the opening of the park, but it still only helped to boost the popularity of the park. Now, Universal's not stopping there. They're still reinventing themselves, adding new rides. The Velociraptor, the Jurassic Park roller coaster, awesome. We just went to Universal. Everything is still great. The Mummy ride. Who does not love the Mummy ride? Right? It's just so cool. And then you forget how good the movie is. You got to go and watch it. It's great. All right, sorry. Universal, though, is reinventing itself. They've actually announced their new theme park, which is called Universal Epic Universe. And it is going to have a Super Nintendo World. I'm so excited for that. Sorry. I just, y'all, you want to be Mario for like a day. But the other themed areas are going to be How to Train Your Dragon, Fantastic Beasts, and of course Universal Monsters, which I'm actually really excited to see that one too. Kind of want to say like Wolfman Scott Nards, but that's not the Wolfman we're talking about. But the Wolfman will still be there. I am the most excited for this park for many reasons, but mainly because it just brings another section of the movies, because Universal is about the movies, so you get to explore new movies. And it's going to be a mainstay in Florida. This theme parks, let me correct myself, they're not going to go anywhere. But we have to talk about the reason that everybody realized that Florida was a good place for theme parks. We have to talk about Disney. Now, Disney World is actually not the first park by Walt Disney, it's the second. And it opened in 1971. He created a theme park just south of Orlando in Lake Buena Vista in Bay Lake, Florida. Yes, there are 2 separate areas. Walt wanted to draw more people to his parks because he realized out in Disneyland, a lot of people weren't coming from this side of the Mississippi. So he was like, well, I want to bring my experience to them. So he bought up a bunch of land just south of Orlando and created his dream. Unfortunately, though, he didn't get to see it completed as he died in 1966. But his brother, Roy Disney, carried out his dream. And Disney World opened to the public in the fanfare on October 1st, 1971, where you could walk down Main Street and look at Cinderella's castle. And if you've ever done it and you remember the first time you went, it was just amazing. You didn't realize that there were people in strollers trying to run you over. You didn't realize that cast members were trying to sell you $40 t-shirts. You were just looking at that castle and all that childhood just comes back to you. Or if you were a child, it didn't get any better than that. The admission for the park when it opened was $3.50 for adults. It was $2.50 for kids under 18, and it was $1 for kids under 12. And man, do I wish these prices were still there today. I love Disney World. I have my reasons, but it is so hard to pay the prices now, even as a Florida resident. I actually remember my parents taking me to Disney when I was younger, and my mom made the comment it cost more to go to Disney World than it did to go to Hawaii. I didn't get that at all. I just thought she was being mom. I've had to buy tickets for myself. Oh, I get it. I absolutely get it. But of course, Disney World continued to thrive and opened Epcot Center in 1982. The park is now just known as Epcot, and it was supposed to be what the future was going to look like today. And of course, we all know Epcot. We'll call it the golf ball. But of course, it got a little bit of it wrong. But it's really cool to see what somebody thought the future could have looked like back then. And you also get to walk around the countries, or drink around the countries, as most of us do. But it's a really cool experience to get to go and to get to experience things, and it's all in one place, and it's safe, and you get to go have fun, however your fun is. But of course, Disney didn't stop there. They continued the theme park trend and opened Disney's MGM Studios, or now as known as Hollywood Studios, in 1989. By the way, I really like the Sorcerer hat. I'm just going to say it. And the Great Movie Ride. I wish they would bring it back. I don't really want to see a Mickey cartoon. That's the whole point of Disney anyways. All right, sorry. Disney continued its expansion in 1998. It did not stop at 3. It continued on to 4 by opening Animal Kingdom, which I'm going to have to say is probably my favorite park. I just love that it's a zoological theme. I love that you can just walk down any of the paths and greet characters and see random animals. I love the little monkeys, the little cotton tamarin, whatever, little black and white monkeys that are across from the Starbucks. They're just so cute. Of course, there's a safari ride. That's always fun. And of course, the Yeti. I myself have tamed the Yeti. I will never do it again. Did it once. I'm good. But it brought a new side to Disney. You can connect more with nature. It's a really just beautiful park. They, of course, added Pandora to, give a new idea, and it's the world of Avatar. It helped boost Animal Kingdom enough that it became the 3rd most visited theme park in 2019 with 3.888 million guests, and that is just Animal Kingdom alone. You can imagine what Magic Kingdom or Epcot or Hollywood Studios is doing. But Disney didn't just stop at the whole theme park thing. They also built 28 resorts that are just run by them. I think there's like 34, 35 total. They have, of course, 2 water parks, which we'll talk about in another episode, and Disney Springs, which, I'm sorry, it will always be Downtown Disney to me. The area has restaurants, shops, movie theaters, other attractions that are not far from the parks and resorts and offer a great thing for guests to stay and make a trip of it. They do have their own forms of transportation to get you around safely. Especially I would definitely say use those transportations if you've been drinking around the world. But they move you around using buses, parking lot trams, water taxis, monorails. They actually have a really cool, or they used to, I don't know if it's still in operation, they had a Lyft system where it looked like Minnie was driving you around. It was partnered with Lyft. It was kind of like your own little Uber just for the parks, or the resort area. It's really cool. But now they've added the gondola lift, another way to get you around, give you a whole new experience. They've also created the system for other theme parks to emulate to get success. They won't go down anytime soon. I'm not sad about that. I just wish it was a little cheaper. We'll talk about that when we talk about Disney World in its own episode. Now, I hope you've learned some interesting facts today about Florida's theme park. I know that we have our favorites, and after hearing about some of these, maybe you'll want to try a new one and create some new memories. I wish that some of the old ones were still open. I would love to see Cypress Garden in the day with the gardens and the trees and just Florida being Florida. Or the pirate ship down in South Florida and just feel like a pirate for a day. But that's the point of theme parks. We get to go in and we get to experience these experiences and we get to create new memories. And that's just part of Florida. Part of Florida is just creating memories. But can't stop with those memories because our favorite ones, or at least our favorite one to talk about right now, include Florida Man. So this week's story, in this episode, is actually from February of 2016, and I think I remember this happening. Florida Man was charged with assault with a deadly weapon after throwing an alligator, yes, I said an alligator, through a drive-thru window at Wendy's. The assault happened in 2015, but it wasn't really picked up widely until 2016. It happened in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the man admitted he didn't know why he did it. He thought it sounded fun. So, as always, thank you, Florida Man, for showing us how not to act in public. Now, I want to thank you guys for tuning into episode 2. I really do appreciate my listeners. Don't forget to like it on Facebook, follow it on Instagram and Twitter. Like and subscribe to whatever podcast you use. I do ask, though, if you do like a page, give me a good review. The reviews help other people to see the podcast. Also, tell people about it. I really appreciate that. Now, don't forget that I'm still looking for those Florida stories, guys. So if you will email me at thatfloridafeel, all lowercase, thatfloridafeel@gmail.com with your That's So Florida stories. I still want to do a listener episode eventually. Also, if you have any suggestions or comments, you want to hear an episode, send it to me. I would love to do research about it. I really thank you guys for listening. I hope to see you all next week on the next stop of our tour in Florida. And as always, that's your daily dose of sunshine.